My grandmother left me her $650,000 house in her will. At the funeral, my aunt announced she'd already sold it and kept the money because Grandma didn't know what she was doing when she wrote that will. I had the sale reversed, and she's now facing fraud charges. My grandmother Marie passed away 3 months ago at 67 after battling Alzheimer's. She raised me from age 7 when my parents died. 6 years ago, she started showing memory problems, and within 2 years, needed round-the-clock care. I moved back to help and spent every evening at her house. My Aunt Carol lived 3 states away and visited twice a year for a weekend. She'd take photos for Facebook, then leave. Never helped with bills or caregivers. 4 years ago, Grandma updated her will. She left me her house worth $650,000 and left Carol $50,000 cash. The lawyer documented she was of sound mind. Grandma said she wanted me to have the house because I'd always been there. When Grandma passed in August, the funeral was scheduled for Saturday. I spent the week making arrangements. Carol flew in Friday night. The funeral was Saturday morning with about 60 people. After the service, we had a reception at the funeral home. I was talking to one of Grandma's friends when Carol walked up to the microphone. She tapped it to get everyone's attention. I figured she was going to thank people for coming. Instead, Carol announced she wanted everyone to know that Grandma's affairs had been settled and she'd taken care of selling Grandma's house. She said the house sold for $625,000 and the money was being distributed according to what Grandma would have really wanted, not what was in some old will, she wrote when she wasn't thinking clearly. My stomach dropped. I walked up and asked what she was talking about. Carol smiled and said she'd found a buyer 2 weeks ago and the sale closed 3 days before the funeral. She said she had power of attorney and Grandma's will wasn't valid because Grandma had Alzheimer's when she wrote it. She said she'd already deposited the money and used some to pay for the funeral as a courtesy to me. I pulled out my phone and called Grandma's lawyer. He answered and I stepped outside to explain what Carol just announced. He said that was impossible because the will was filed with the court. He had documentation of Grandma's mental capacity, and power of attorney ends when someone dies, so Carol had no legal right to sell anything. He said if she really sold the house, that was fraud, and I needed to contact police immediately. I walked back inside and told Carol in front of everyone that I'd just spoken to the lawyer and what she did was illegal. She said I was overreacting and family handles these things internally. I told her she committed fraud and I was calling the police. Her face went completely white and she started backtracking, saying maybe she misunderstood some paperwork. I called the police right there at the reception. 2 officers showed up within 20 minutes. I explained the situation and showed them the will the lawyer had emailed me. Carol tried to leave, but the officers stopped her. She admitted she'd found a title company that processed the sale quickly and signed documents as Grandma's representative. The officers took her information and told her not to leave the state. We discovered Carol had forged documents to sell the property through a shady title company. The buyer paid $625,000 cash. My lawyer filed an emergency motion and the court reversed the sale within 2 weeks. The buyer is now suing Carol. It's been 3 months since the funeral. Carol was formally charged with fraud, forgery, and theft. She's facing up to 5 years in prison. Her lawyer tried arguing she was confused about the estate process and made an honest mistake. The prosecutor showed the court that Carol had researched how to sell inherited property quickly and challenging a will for Alzheimer's in the weeks before Grandma died. She'd planned this. My family is split. Some relatives think I'm being too harsh pressing charges and that we should have worked it out privately. I told them she announced at my grandmother's funeral that she'd stolen my inheritance and tried to claim Grandma was mentally incompetent. She committed multiple felonies. Carol's been offering to make things right if I drop the charges. I told the prosecutor, I'm not interested. The house is back in my name and I'm currently living in it, fixing it up the way Grandma always wanted. Some of Grandma's old neighbors stopped by saying they're glad I got the house and that Grandma would be proud I stood up to Carol. A few cousins think I'm being vindictive and destroying Carol's life over a house. I tell them Carol destroyed her own life when she decided to commit fraud at her mother's funeral. The trial is set for next month. I'll be there.